Hey everyone, so probably after that presentation, you're thinking how you're going to sort out your crypto tax nightmare. That's what I was thinking back in 2018 and set out to build this software. We're now growing quite significantly to over 40 people, proudly Australian made and owned, servicing over 100,000 users. We've actually got, I think it's over 600 integrations now, and yeah, very comprehensive reporting for Australian user base. So essentially, once you go and log into the platform, you can also check out the pricing here if you are curious. It's only $49 for 100 transactions, and then all the way up to 100,000 transactions is $399. An important point to note here is that it's a subscription-based service, so you just pay once a year, and if you've got tax returns to do for, say, the last 4 years, if you're sitting here in that presentation thinking, oh, geez, how am I going to do all my taxes? I've got to get up to date with everything over the last few years. It's actually all covered under the one plan. So we're not charging per report. We actually just charge once for the subscription. And then you've got access to all financial years, I think all the way back to 2012. And moving forward, the idea is that you keep this up to date throughout the year so it comes to the next tax filing deadline and you're not scrambling to get everything sorted. You've actually got a nice transaction history already nicely organized, and then it's just a lot easier to share this with your accountant and file it with the ATO. So what you'll do if you log into the platform, we've already got some data in here. But for example, you can see all the different integrations that we do have. There's a lot of them. We cover things like Solana, Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, like all the major decentralized kind of protocols there, like Avalanche, and all the the dApps on top of those protocols. But importantly, we also cover the major exchanges, including obviously Binance, as well as kind of some of the other Binance ecosystem there, such as BSC, etc., which is quite popular. So you can actually choose to import your Binance data via CSV or API. When working with an accountant, sometimes it's preferred to actually use the CSV so that you can actually have a record of what's been provided to you. You can actually share that raw data with the accountant so they've got a record as well. If you do connect with an API, it's always good to have some hard data in the background in case something happens with the API down the track and you can't access this information, etc. But the API is probably a more streamlined way of doing things. You can connect in your API key in secret. We've actually got instructions on exactly what you want to be doing here on the right. So we've got step-by-step instructions. Same with the CSV. It's really important that you actually choose to download the correct CSV on Binance because there's actually quite a few. It's a very broad exchange with lots of different products, etc. And there's really actually just one particular report, the transaction history report, that we're interested in there. Same when generating the API keys, you want to make sure that you don't enable any API keys with trading permissions. They should be read-only API keys. And we've got details on what's covered and some edge cases here as well to be aware of. So you could get kind of comprehensive data once you connect all your kind of exchange sources. So the idea here is actually what you want to be doing is just really focusing on connecting everything to begin with. So all your wallet addresses, for example, if you've got Binance Smart Chain wallet and also an Ethereum wallet, you want to be connecting those public wallet addresses. We don't need any private keys, as well as all your centralized exchange activities. So Binance Smart Chain, you might have upgraded from another fiat on-ramp exchange from back in the day, and now you've progressed to Binance. So you want to be able to capture that information as well, because what we need is a full transaction history from the initial purchases of crypto in the ecosystem, because those initial purchases will form the cost basis of the future sale. So if you only import 2022 data, but you've got trading history all the way back to 2017, we're not going to know what the cost basis is. All the calculations are actually based on the actual transactions that are showing in the app. So you can actually, once you've imported all your data, you can click on review transactions and you'd be able to see all the different transactions here. that are fiat denominated and sorted, oldest to newest or newest to oldest, depending on how you want to sort it. I've got a couple of other tabs here already to just highlight some of this. So you could see here we've got, Binance Smart Chain wallet, and you could see here, you've actually got some of these complex transactions that we talked about. So in this case, it was previously a trade, but you might make the argument with your accountant that, you've decided that BNB and Cream BNB are actually very similar assets, and that rather than triggering a disposal for tax purposes, you're going to take the approach that this is actually a rollover, that they're actually tracking the same asset, etc. And obviously you'd only be doing that in collaboration with your tax professional to make sure that you've got appropriate coverage there to support your position. But we do facilitate these kind of complexities. You've got a lot of different categories, whether they're incoming categories such as airdrops, bridging, fiat deposits, interest, staking rewards, that type of thing, all the way to borrowing assets, etc. And then from the disposal side of things, we talked about, not only do you have sells and sends where you're just transferring assets, but maybe you're bridging, you're burning the transaction, you've got a liquidation event, you've got personal use assets, etc. So you could do all these categorizations in the app, right? And then in the settings, you can even configure what those categories might mean. So you've actually got some tax settings here as well, so you can work with your accountant to configure this for yourself as well. Some examples here, for example, transferring. So we've got this transfer from one wallet to another. Now let's say that this is between chains. So you might decide that that's actually a bridge. And so you can actually select this category here, and that will trigger it as a bridge. And then that would be really a rollover rather than disposal for tax purposes. Importantly, what we've got up here is the reconciliation engine as well. So you can actually go up here and you can have a look at some of the high level issues that might be occurring within your account. So for example, here, we've got an example of $100,000 plus of value being transferred back and forth to this particular wallet, 26 times. So this would really indicate that this is probably, your own wallet or exchange, and that you should be importing that data as well. So you'll find maybe you've got quite a lot of transactions, or you've been in the space for a while, you might not be aware of all your wallets, etc. anymore. Maybe you've forgotten about a particular exchange account, etc. So you've just got these kind of step-by-step processes to try and highlight these issues with your account, and then being able to look at the high impact, medium impact, and low impact issues. So ideally, you want to be working from high impact first, because what you'll find is that once you add this wallet, auto categorization algorithm will kind of match all the transfers together, and basically the algorithm starts to get smarter as you add more data. So it's really important that you do go about doing your homework, making sure that you're connecting all your data before you actually go over to the reports and try to generate these reports. In this instance, it's not completed, so you can see a bunch of warnings highlighting, we've got a total of $47,000 being sold here without a clear asset price. So you probably want to be addressing that, because it can totally inflate the results otherwise. And then you can select, because of that subscription plan, you can actually select any previous financial year as part of that payment. And you've got different inventory methods. Really important to consult with the tax professional to before using any alternative methods to first in, first out. But we've got, for example, least tax first out. This particular algorithm will try to work out, based on your disposals, it will actually consider trying to sell off assets with the highest cost base first, which would minimize your gains. And it will also take into consideration gains from capital gains, etc., like your long-term capital gains discount, and make a decision based on this as to trying to optimize to minimize the tax threshold. But it is worth really talking to your tax professional before selecting these algorithms, because we don't have actual clarity at the moment as to whether anything apart from first in, first out is actually allowable. One major benefit of this is that you actually do get a dashboard of your transaction history. So you can actually see in real time, once you've connected all your exchanges and wallets, what's actually going on, what's your unrealized gains and losses, what's your portfolio looking like. You've got a breakdown with the cost basis, etc. here. So it is actually a kind of a net benefit. It's not just a once a year tool, but you can actually get into more like tax planning and portfolio tracking, etc. Once you do have everything connected from in the calculator itself. It's really important when looking at these balances. You've got to consider what we're showing in this instance is the balance that's being calculated by the application itself. So what you'll find is that there's two ways of looking at this portfolio. There's the portfolio that actually exists, that's on the exchange, and they just send you information of like, hey, you're holding 10 Bitcoin. But if I import in my transaction history CSV that I've only bought, 1 Bitcoin, for example, well, then on my portfolio in the app from a calculated point of view would be 1 Bitcoin in my inventory, because that's all what's reflected here. So if there are discrepancies there, that will kind of highlight to you that perhaps not all the transactions are being accounted for. And so you do need to go through and make sure that you've got a full transaction history of all your different transactions here. Fortunately, if that's a lot of work, we do work with quite a lot of different accounting firms. So you can always reach out to support down here and try to connect with somebody if you do need additional help from a bookkeeping point of view. Otherwise, once you've got everything reconciled, you could go back to generating these reports. Importantly, with these reports here, you've got a report summary, which is just a high-level position. But you've also got the capital gains report, which will be most relevant to a lot of the audience. But following on from that discussion we talked about with derivative margin and futures trading being treated quite differently. So we've actually got a different report for realized P&L. And another example is if you're treated as as a trader rather than an investor, then you're going to be most interested in this trading stock report. So if you're a bit concerned about taking in all that information within 12 minutes, what we've actually got is very comprehensive help articles. So I would certainly recommend reading through the beginner guide. We've tried to keep this as concise as possible, not to bore yourself, because I'm sure you're probably not wanting to spend your afternoons or weekends doing crypto tax. But it is worth reading through some of these guidelines just to get your head around how the product works. We've also got an intercom chat support here as well, so you can be talking straight to people in Australia essentially, and get the help that you need. Hopefully that's been really helpful for everyone, and able to sort out your crypto tax nightmare after using our software. CryptoTaxCalculator.io, discount codes in the description. Cheers guys.